Now back to Rush Limbaugh on the future of the Republican Party. Let's continue to break down his hour-long speech. Joining me from CPAC is CNN political editor Mark Preston, senior political analyst Bill Schneider, plus Ron Christie, a former domestic policy advisor to President Bush and Vice President Cheney. Bill, let's continue with you. We left you there at the break. We want to play one soundbite from Rush Limbaugh's speech and get your reaction to it.
We got out of the 1980s recession with tax cuts. Do you know that President Obama, in 6 weeks of his administration, has proposed more spending than from the founding of the country to his inauguration? Now, this is not prosperity. It is not going to engender prosperity. It's not going to create prosperity. And it is also not going to advance or promote freedom. It's going to be just the opposite. There are going to be more controls over what you can and can't do, how you can and can't do it, what you can and can't drive, what you can and can't say, where you can and can't say it. All of these things are coming down the pike because it's not about revenue generation to them, it's about control. They do believe that they have compassion. They do believe they care. But see, we never are allowed to look at the results of their plans. We are told we must only look at their good intentions, their big hearts. The fact that they have destroyed poor families by breaking up those families, by offering welfare checks to women to keep having babies, no more father needed, he's out doing something, the government's the father, destroy the family. We're not supposed to analyze that. We're not supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to talk about their good intentions. They destroy people's futures.
Bill, there you have it. Some very strong words from a man with a lot of influence among conservatives.
Yes, those are indeed strong words, and he may have crossed the line in that and some other comments he made, which were critical, of course, of Barack Obama's policies. A lot of people are critical of those policies. That's fair game. This is politics. One can have that debate. But he also, on many occasions, you just heard one, cast aspersions on President Obama's motives. At various places, he said he wants to punish achievement and success. He's trying to foment and create anger, which, of course, was a lot of the tone of Mr. Limbaugh's own speech. And at one point, I believe I heard him say he wants to destroy the country. These are very, very divisive comments. A lot of the speech's tone was one of mockery, bullying, contempt. But when he crosses the line and talks about casting aspersions on what the president's motives are, that there's some sinister motivation, then I think a lot of people will be offended.
Let's get Ron Christie's reaction to that. Ron, did Rush Limbaugh cross the line here today?
I don't think he did, Randy. Good evening, first of all. I slightly disagree with what Bill had to say. I think when you look at fundamentally from a policy standpoint, I agree with what Rush Limbaugh had to say. When you look at the welfare system, when you look at the trillions of dollars that we've spent since the Great Society from the 1960s, and what just happened in the stimulus bill. In the stimulus bill, a cap was removed that allowed people previously said you only had a certain amount of time to stay on welfare. Now that cap has been lifted. And if you look at what Rush Limbaugh had to say about the president's motivations for those who are very successful, I agree with that. I don't think that was bullying. I don't think it was across the line. If you say to people who are in the top 2% of the American tax bracket who generate 63% of the wealth in this country, that if you continue to do well and you're successful, that we're going to tax you higher, I think that is a tax on people who are succeeding. I think that's a disincentive for people to do well. So rather than characterizing that as a aspersion, I think he's right. We need to call this what it is. The president wants to tax people who are doing well because they're doing well. Everybody has to have a little bit of skin in the game, as the president says. Let's let other people in other demographic brackets pick up some of the slack.
Ron, I know that Mitt Romney won the straw poll today, but is Rush Limbaugh the new face of the conservative movement? Is this the direction that the Republicans want to go in?
I think he is one of many leaders, one of many voices for the conservative movement. But as Rush Limbaugh always says, he's not a Republican, he's a conservative. And I think there are many in the media who would like to cast him as being the voice of the Republicans, or he speaks for the Republicans. He is one of many strong voices who speak for conservatives, but certainly Governor Romney is one of the people, given what we're dealing with the economic crisis in this country, who speaks for many Republicans, who says we need to have an honest debate about economic packages. We need to have an honest discussion about economic stimulus. how can we make sure this country is revitalized and move forward in the best way possible? Rush Limbaugh, Mitt Romney, Sarah Palin, those are some of the voices that I expect that we'll hear from in the next year or two.
Mark Preston, you were in that room there at CPAC. Did it sound to you as though Rush Limbaugh is the new face of the party?
Well, I can tell you, Randy, he's certainly an influential voice. There's no question about that. I'll tell you, before Rush Limbaugh took the stage, I spent some time talking to some of the participants here, some of the attendees, and really, by and large, they really enjoy Rush Limbaugh. They enjoy listening to him. They think that he can reach out to the masses and touch people beyond the Washington Beltway. But I will tell you this as well. There is some criticism of Rush Limbaugh. Some people think that he is a reactionary, and if you were to look at the cover of this magazine right here, The American Conservative, this magazine was being distributed here at the conference, Randy. What it says is the TV, excuse me, how radio wrecks the right here. And basically what this article is saying, among other things, is that for the past 8 years, conservatives, for the most part, conservatives on the radio have really been cheerleaders for the Bush administration and how that was a bad, bad policy. So there is some criticism. I will say, by and large, though, as we heard from the applause, people were very happy what they heard from Limbaugh today.
Yeah, it certainly sounded that way. Mark, Bill, and Ron, you're all going to stick around. We're going to continue this discussion. In the meantime, we want to share some more of your thoughts. You've been Twittering with us all evening. One more from HN Zosan. Limbaugh says that Democrats are scheming to mislead and control the country. Bo Bottom, Limbaugh proves so many analysts right. They don't realize why they lost. Zeno Varvel writes, that's why they're pumping the economy full of money. Deflation is a much bigger threat. Ninqui Renew writes, the audience reaction to Rush terrified me. The feeling of downright wrongness left me cold. Many ignorant, misguided ditto heads. We, of course, want you to be part of our show. Don is off tonight. I'm here, but we're still taking your feedback, of course. Log on to Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, or iReport.com and tell me what you're thinking.